Hey guys, HackerSploit here, back again with another video, and in this video I'm going to be talking about Docker on Windows, more specifically how to run containers, how it works, the infrastructure, because in my previous video regarding Docker I got a lot of questions about people, just inquiring about how it works on Windows, because I explained it to a very basic extent as to how it works on Linux and the fact that you're sharing the Linux kernel, the Linux kernel of the host. So I got a lot of questions regarding how this is handled on Windows, especially when you want to run containers that Linux containers, and one of them is the bug bounty toolkit. So in this video, my goal is to show you how to set up Docker on Windows, the requirements. Secondly, I'll be explaining the structure, and then finally we'll take a look at the bug bounty toolkit in action. All right. So first of all, there's some very important prerequisites that you need before you can run Docker on Windows, right? So let's just take a look at them right over here. So first of all, you require Windows 10 or Windows Server 2016. Now, this is very, very complex because it also depends on the version that you're running. So you require Windows 10 Pro or Windows 10 Enterprise. Now, I'll explain why you need this in a second, and I believe it's the same for Windows Server. It could be the standard edition, I'm not too sure, but I'm also going to be covering that and an Active Directory because it's something that I've been lacking in. But the point being, the reason you need these versions of Windows is because Docker on Windows utilizes Hyper-V, right? So for those of you who are new to what Hyper-V is, or you've never heard of it, and for good reason, it's more of an enterprise feature, but Hyper-V is essentially Microsoft's native hypervisor. So there you go. If you guys didn't know that Microsoft has their own, they do. So many of you will be asking, well, where can I go and download it? Surely it must be better than VirtualBox because it's native, right? Well, the answer to that is no. You do require Windows 10 Pro or Enterprise, and you have to enable it manually. Now, you might be saying, well, how do I enable it manually? You mean it comes pre-installed? Well, not really. You have to go into your control panel, go to uninstall programs, and turn Windows features on or off, similar to what you'd have to do if you are enabling the Windows subsystem for Linux. And what you're looking for is Hyper-V. Now, by default, it's going to be disabled. So you want to make sure you click on this checkbox here. And once you hit OK, it's going to start downloading it, searching for the required files, as Windows would call it. And it's going to install it and prompt you to restart your system, after which it's going to have Hyper-V set up. Now, the important thing to actually understand here is Hyper-V cannot work in conjunction with VirtualBox. So if you have Hyper-V set up and installed, VirtualBox will not work, and you can test it out for yourself. So that's how to install Hyper-V. Now, when installing Docker on Windows, it will do it itself automatically because it requires Hyper-V. I'll explain how it handles virtualization in a second, right? So what you want to do is just go to the docs.docker.com and under Docker for Windows, this link will be in the description section. And you don't want to download the Docker Enterprise Edition because that is, of course, an Enterprise Edition with features that are useful to enterprises. So you want to go into install Docker for Desktop, and that's going to take you into the Docker Hub right over here. So you want to sign into Docker Hub or create an account. For some weird reason, if you're doing it on Windows, they require you to do it. So just go ahead and sign in and download it. And the setup is very simple. It's just going to prompt you to begin installing. And again, if you have Hyper-V disabled, it's gonna ask you as to whether you want to do it. After it's installed and set up Hyper-V, it's going to restart your system, and you should have Docker running. Now, once you have Docker set up and installed, and you can see that it's going to be enabled on startup. So you want to go into your taskbar, and you can see you have the little Docker icon here. Right now it's telling me Docker is running. So if I just click on it, you can see it gives you various options. I can restart the daemon. I have documentation. I have the Docker Hub itself, and I can switch to Windows containers. Now, switching to Windows containers, this means that you're now working with Windows containers. And that's something that I'll probably have to cover on its own because there aren't many Windows containers, and it really works well on Windows Server, as from my experience. But you want to go into your settings, right? So in your settings, you have what I would call, the essentials in regards to the configuration. So if you take a look at your shared drives, you can specify the local drives you want available to your containers. I typically have mine just set to the default where Windows is installed. So that's my C drive. As for the advanced settings, this is where you limit the resources available to Docker Engine. In my case, it's 2 CPUs, 2 gigs of RAM, swap of 1 gig, and the disk image location is under program data, Docker desktop. So it just gives you the location there by default, and you can specify the disk image size or the partition that you want to specify where your images will be stored. As you can see, I've used about 3.88 gigs so far. You then have your network where you have your subnet. So the default subnet is set for you right over here. You can also change your subnet mask. That's very important if you're working with networking, and you can specify a DNS server. Very useful. You also have proxies, the daemon itself. So you can configure the Docker daemon by, again, you can take a look at all the configuration options here. This is beyond the scope of this video, and you can then reset the Docker daemon. So that's essentially the options you're given here. Now, before we get started with using it, I want to explain the structure of how Docker works on Windows, how it virtualizes Linux so that you can run Linux containers. So I'll get back to you in a second with my whiteboard. All right, so we're back on my whiteboard, and you know, I've got a lot of requests for people asking me to actually use my graphics tablet for illustrations as opposed to using images, and I totally agree. But my handwriting and my drawing is pretty terrible on this graphics tablet. But again, please do bear with me. You have been warned. So what we're going to try and do now is I'm going to try and explain how Docker works on Linux, first of all. And I know I've already explained that, but I want to explain it one more time so that we know the differences between how it works on Linux and how it works on Windows. So I'll also explain how it works on Windows. We'll take a look at the similarities, the differences, and of course the biggest difference, which is going to be the utilization of system resources. So let's get started with understanding how it works on Linux. Now, as I said in the previous video, we can take a simple example. We have the host operating system, and this is running Ubuntu, right? So we're going to say Ubuntu. You'll be saying what version. I'll just say 18.04 standard LTS. So we'll also add that right over here. This is running the kernel version 4.19. I think that's the standard one it comes pre-installed with. We then have Docker here. All right, so Docker is installed, and you can install this either by using the convenience script or the aptitude package manager. And then once you have Docker, you then have your containers here, and I'll just add quite a few containers here. We can have a larger container and a smaller one right over here. So we could have this could be running Apache, for example. Apologies for my bad handwriting. This could be running MySQL. It could be running a database. This is running Alpine, and these are just simple examples. And this could be running Fedora. Man, not many people like Fedora for one weird reason. And the overlying or the underlying concept here is that with Docker, these containers utilize the host operating system kernel. So in this case, all the containers here will utilize this kernel right over here, which is going to be 4.19. So Apache will also run on this here. MySQL will run on it. Alpine will run on it. And that way you have a lower utilization of system resources because of the fewer layers. Now, a typical hypervisor would be as follows. And again, this was explained in the previous video. So you have your OS, or this could be the hypervisor, but I'll give you an example of a typical desktop setup. And then you have your hypervisor, and then after you've set up your hypervisor, you then have your VMs, right? So VMs will just set up 2 here, and then you have the operating system again. So you have to install the operating system, and then finally you can host the service. So again, OS and service. So what happens with this, the more layers that you add, the higher the utilization of system resources, which is one of the problems Docker was trying to tackle. So now that we understand how it works on Linux and the differences between how it works on Linux and a typical hypervisor infrastructure, let's take a look at how it works on Windows, which is going to be slightly different. And the mention of Hyper-V and the role it plays is very important here. So we'll have the host operating system here, and this is going to be running Windows 10 or Server 2016. Do let me know what version of Windows Server it runs exactly. I'm not too sure. And then you have Docker, right? The Docker engine. And then right over here you have Hyper-V, and this is hypervising or virtualizing Linux, because we're talking about Linux containers here. This is different when talking about using Docker on Windows to host Windows containers. So you have the hypervised or virtualized Linux layer here, and this is all handled by Hyper-V, which is much better than something like VirtualBox, for example. And of course you then have your Linux containers, and again I'll just keep them nice and sorted right over here. And of course we could have Ubuntu, and we could have Fedora, we could have Alpine, and Nginx, for example, Nginx web server. And what they're going to do is, let's say we had a kernel version 5.3. Let me just get rid of this here. I believe that's the latest version, 5.3. That means that Nginx will run on this kernel. Ubuntu will also run on this. Fedora, Alpine, you get the idea. They all run on this kernel. So one thing that you can see on Windows here is we have a much higher utilization as opposed to Docker on Linux because of the additional layers. So we have Docker, the Hyper-V virtualization of Linux, and then the containers themselves, which is fine. I haven't noticed too much of a difference in regards to resource consumption and utilization, but this is typically how it works on Windows, and I'm specifically referring to running Linux containers. So this is Linux containers on Windows, right? And again, this changes when running Windows containers on Windows with Docker. I'll probably make an entire video on that. But again, as I said, the infrastructure is very, very simple with Docker. You're essentially using the hypervised Linux layer here to essentially make all of these other containers function. So now that we have an understanding of how Docker works on Windows and how it differs, from traditional or the hosting on Linux, we can actually get our hands dirty with seeing how it works and how we can set up the bug bounty toolkit. So I'll see you there. All right, so now that we're done with actually understanding how it works on Windows, and I'm sorry I had to sit through my horrendous drawings and my illustrations, but they'll get better. We can actually get our hands dirty. So make sure you have Docker installed if you're following along, and we can get started immediately. Now, to use Docker, it's going to be pretty much the same commands that you have on Linux. The commands don't change. However, you'll be executing these commands from PowerShell. So again, you want to make sure that you have Docker running. So you can see if I just hover over the icon on my taskbar, it tells me that Docker desktop is running. It's very important that you have it running before we actually get started. So let me just change a few things here. With the font, we'll just make that larger so you guys can see what's going on. So again, I can use a simple command like docker ps, and I hit enter. You can see it gives us the results similar to what we had on Linux. I can also display all, and there we are. If I display my images, you can see we have the bug bounty toolkit, and that's the latest version. We have added a few more tools. GoBuster is one of them. Many of you guys were requesting that. Thank you to, I actually can't remember your name, I do apologize, but we had a contributor who actually added that feature. I do really, really appreciate that. So thank you. I do apologize. Your link, your GitHub repository will be in the description section, or the link to your GitHub repo will be in the description section. We then have Ubuntu here, which I think was downloaded because I set up the bug bounty toolkit. So again, the Docker pull commands still remain the same. So you can use the, if I just say hub.docker.com, and you can use the same Docker pull commands. If I search for MySQL, for example, if I wanted to set up a database, I can just search for it right over here. And you can use the tag system as I mentioned in the previous video. So you can copy the docker pull command, and that's just how you can pull a Docker image without running it. So let's try and run the bug bounty toolkit, and I'll explain about a little bit of why I created it and how it really works well with Windows, especially when using Docker. So again, I'll just say Docker, that is Docker run, and I want it to be an interactive. I want an interactive terminal, and I'll also clean up after I have exited from the session, because I don't want to have a container and I don't want to persist the data within the container. Then I specify the image name or the ID. So I'll just specify the first three letters or characters in the image ID. That's another tip for you guys. And I then specify what command I want to run. I'll also be adding an entry point to the Docker image so that it does this automatically, and I hit enter. And we'll give it a few seconds, and there we are. You can see we're now inside the bug bounty toolkit, and all the tools work natively. So again, we can use deb, for example. We have nmap, that's working out just fine. We also install GoBuster, as I said. So GoBuster works natively, fantastic. So this is pretty much the infrastructure I had in mind when many of you are asking me, how would this look if I was running this on Windows? So for example, if I'm performing a bug bounty, if I'm doing bug bounties, or I'm performing a web assessment, I can fire up my proxy. It could either be SAP or Burp Suite, and then I have my tools right on easily accessible to for me. So let me just minimize this. So I could have my proxy right over here. I then have my tools right beside me. And if I wanted to run another one, so I can just open up Windows PowerShell, Docker run. Also, sorry, you have the images here because I need the image name. So Docker run, and we just, sorry, this is IT, and we specify 16e bin bash, hit enter. And I can also use another session if I was performing an nmap scan, GoBuster. So I can spawn multiple containers, for various tasks. And this is typically how I would use it. So I'll just exit. And remember, it's not persisting any data. So that means it's not saving them. If you want to save them, go ahead. If you have data that's useful, we have the word lists, which is, as I said, we're currently using sec lists. And it's absolutely fantastic. You can use the various tools that we added. We added mass DNS, that was a highly requested tool. NockPy, everything working out of the box. We also have sublister, and there you go. We also have comics. We added plenty of tools and SQL maps. So this is typically, or this is the typical setup that we had in mind in regards to how you can use it on Windows and also on Linux. So that's how to use Docker on Windows. That's how it works, how to set it up. Let me know if you guys have any other questions regarding images, how to actually build new images, which is pretty much the same as it was on Linux. Yeah, so that's pretty much all I had to explain in this video. If you have any questions or suggestions, let me know in the comment section on my social networks, and you can check out our blog at hackersploit.com, and I'll be seeing you in the next video.